Oh, welcome to another episode of the Growth Compass. Shout out to our sponsor, Senders. If you want to do cold email deliverability correctly, hit the link in the description. But without them, it would not be possible to interview interesting people doing interesting things like Daniele. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How are you?
Awesome. This is so cool. I hope that when people see your name, people see Toolhouse, they do a little bit of research. But if they didn't, if you could just start out with a little intro about yourself and what you're building, because it is so cool.
Yeah. So I'll start with what I tell everybody, developer or not. So it's like there's this new freeway they built. It's called the AI freeway. Everybody wants to get into this new freeway, right? Everybody needs a car to just run, speed up. Who am I to judge? So you try and go to the dealership and you try to uh, buy this car, but nobody sells you the car. Instead, they sell you the windshield, the gearbox, the seats, the entertainment system. Like, where's the damn car? Nobody has the car. And who's building the car? Nobody. So we're building the car. What does it mean? We're building basically this all-in-one stack that's super simple to use, and it allows you to just build things in like hours, minutes sometimes. I was at an event a couple of weeks ago and it was 9 to 5. In that span of time, we built 106 use cases. So it's that simple. And users walk away with their own car to just go and run on this AI freeway.
So when you're saying, I have questions about how you got here and what you're doing before and things like that, but can't wait to ask this one. When you're saying build, when you're saying 106 use cases, what types of use cases, what types of things are we building?
Anything, just like, this cloud platforms like AWS, what are use cases you can build? You can build pretty much anything on that. You can build from, just internal systems to like AI systems. Same here. Like you can build agents that can help with marketing, helping you out with like tasks that are repetitive. We, for example, internally, we built a system that allows you to review every single part of the code and gives you like recommendation or even fix the code for you. There are companies that are building marketing agents, so they create hyper-personalized newsletters in for each one of their customers. So they can build pretty much anything, and you can do it with great ease because we basically have built the all-in-one solution, so you don't have to plug all these new systems all in one go. You basically define an agent with plain English, and then it becomes an API. And from that moment on, if you know how to call an API, now you know how to call an agent. Super simple. It's already pre-integrated with many tools. And then because there's MCP inside, we're an MCP client, not just a server. So you can plug whatever other integration we might lack, or maybe your own if you want to plug your own.
So I have another burning question, but I'll use it to get right back into this piece of the conversation because I do want some more context into how did you get here? How long has Toolhouse been around? What led you to the idea of launching this company, and just what work were you doing before you launched the company?
So we've been around not for long. Like the company, we incorporated last year, but the
Congrats.
product as it is, it's been like 6 months old. We started with 7 monthly active users. Now we're like past 2,000 daily.
Yeah.
Yeah, the revenue is coming in. Like we're doing the right thing.
All right.
How did I bump into this problem? Well, I had the same problem myself. I was building something for myself, and I figured out it took me weeks to do the integrations. And after I did the integration, then I haven't even started building the actual use case I had in mind for my end users. And so I was like, I had a degree in computer science. It's not my first rodeo. Like, is it me that did I lose it all of a sudden? And so I started asking the network, and I was like, is AI development this hard? And everybody said yes. Like, can somebody fix it? I will pay. And somebody also told me, well, it is, and it's so painful that I know this guy that's trying to build something. Let me introduce it to you. And so I started to basically build a network of people where they'll be willing to pay for this solution, but there was no solution. And so I had basically customers without the solution, which is a great problem to have. I approached my investor, and investor said, shut up, take the money, incorporate, it's time to go. And so we started that way because there was the problem, but no clear solution. So we started to approach that. And the way I did it was because I've been spending my entire career in what's called like developer relations or developer experience, more importantly. So I've been spending my entire career working alongside external developers. First, at Meta, we had the Facebook API at the time. I'm that old. I was part of Meta when Meta was called Facebook, and we had a developer platform. And so we were extremely, how can I say, very, very strict in making sure that people would have the best possible experience there. And when you learn what that means and how it's done, then you have this really gold mine of interaction, of ergonomics on a developer product that it's rarely found elsewhere. But then I had to do the same at the company that was then called Twitter. I basically saw three Twitters, three different CEOs, but that's a different podcast.
Yeah.
You know, uh, so that the same. We had a bleeding ecosystem, and we had to flip it. And to do that, so you also need to learn how to actually not just build an awesome product, but how to build an awesome community and an awesome movement. Like, why should developers care about your product, regardless of the logo, regardless of the brand? They should care because there's something in store for them. And so we had to do the same. So I basically done like 10 plus years of mistakes and learnings and things that worked out pretty well to come to this idea of Toolhouse, this concept. And thankfully it's all going well because I'm sure like, one thing or two, I know how to do that, but also the response from our customers and the overall community has been beyond amazing.
Yeah. So you said a lot of your experience has been designing for developers to make sure that they care about their experience with the product. But I'm curious about how you came to care about that problem in the first place. Since you were a kid, you were thinking about developer UI and things like that, or did it evolve over time?
I think that's me as a kid. Like you're right. It starts very early. Like I remember my first computer program was I remember typing into this computer, I want to draw a working clock, enter. And then the computer got me syntax error. So I invented the first prompt, I want to say. I was like 8 at this like learn how to read and write. That didn't work. And I was like,
That's
okay,
funny.
now
Okay.
that's it. Now I need to fix this. And I was always interested, fascinated. I was really in love with the end solution. Like I wanted to figure out how to solve that problem for everybody without going through the headache or the complexity of the algorithm or the optimization. Like I, as an engineer myself, I have a computer science degree, but as an engineer, I was never, and I'm still not interested in like the optimization, the algorithms. I just want to see the thing built because I know that solves a problem, not just the algorithm. The algorithm, the optimization is a neat trick, but overall, what you need is a solution and fast. That's my initial push to solve problems, and then I started to care. I started to care about the way people actually use the thing. And obviously, the best example is the iPhone, iMac, like when the Apple products were so well curated and refined, and you started to have this emotional connection with it. And I started to investigate why is that. We always apply that to consumer products, but never to developer products. And so I had the luxury of working at large companies where we could afford a ton of research to do that. And I added my own research, and we keep doing this at Toolhouse. In a way, we are a research company that focuses on developer experience, not on just user experience. Like developers and users are very similar. They have the same purchase habits. Like, why do we really like an iPhone? I like my iPhone because it's such a very well designed phone, very great materials. When I unlock it, it's so smooth. Then when I scroll, it scrolls so well from page to page. And I want the same as a developer. What is that equivalent? Well, that's exactly what we work on and what we figure out alongside our developers every single day.
Wow, that's so fascinating. So, is there's you said in your years of being at places like Meta slash Facebook or Twitter, I won't even call it X. I like the name Twitter better. But you were very fortunate to be at places where you could conduct a lot of research, make a lot of mistakes, and also learn a lot of really important things, and you're applying them into Toolhouse now. But I'm curious from your perspective, let's say two of the most maybe interesting or most important like core concepts of creating something digital that would create the same emotional connection that an iPhone does, like you were saying.
Right. Yeah. There's a speech I gave a couple of years ago about exactly that. I was at Twitter and we were rebuilding the entire API. And so there was one question that I spent so much time thinking about, and it was about like how do we get people to actually try before they commit, try before they buy the API.
Interesting.
How do you try and get people to really touch the thing without having any effort? I was like having that conversation with myself mostly. I was like thinking, I had this intuition. I was like getting a new, I think a new sweater or something. And so I went to, I think Macy's at the time, and I ended up in the fitting room, in the dressing room, and in the fitting room it hit me. I was like, why do the fitting room exist? Exactly for that purpose, because you can try something before you buy the thing. So it's effortless. You don't have to commit your credit card. Even if you buy it, then you don't even have to go through the return. It's just like you're here, you can just like figure it out, and you have a good environment where you can fit it. There's a nice, well lit room. And I was like, what is the equivalent in developer experience of this? And then it hit me. It's the playground, some sort of like sandbox where you can start getting your hands dirty, but you don't have to sign up. You don't have to do anything. And so I started building that myself. And the result was our first ever Tour developer playground, where you can test out the new Tour API without committing to like building a sample app altogether. And that had obviously a huge impact on the community, because not only they came to test out the new API, but they can also use it as a debug tool. So we saw not only new signups, but we also saw retention, because it was a useful tool where people will come back and keep testing stuff out. So that's basically what goes into like the average day of basically a developer experience research company. First of all, you need to have people who have built something. You can't just have software engineers. You can't have just brilliant minds that can solve algorithms. You need to have empathetic people that have built something themselves before. So you could be a PhD, and I'm sure there are PhDs out there or researchers in computer science that know much more than I do in algorithms. But that doesn't matter. What matters is, have you built something, and have you bumped into these problems, and can you understand the patterns and connect the dots? And that is the rare aspect. And thankfully, Toolhouse is a company built from developers to developers, and those developers have been entrepreneurial. They built something before. They came from their own companies before. They are developers that had to solve a problem for other people, not in a silo, not researchers. And so I think our moat really and our unique perspective as Toolhouse is exactly that we bring this unique customer zero perspective, developer zero perspective. And that is something that you can't really study or build or learn. It just like takes something that's inside you, and really that's this kind of empathy. Like you want to do the right thing for your customers. And so that's what we're doing.
So other thank you by the way for all this insight, because I think that's a really to me at least, for how these types of products are discussed, APIs, developer tools, things like this. I think it's a really cool, absolutely refreshing perspective, because it's making me think about developer tools in a way that you would think about like a couch, which is a really interesting. So I'm curious, other than things that you've been a part of that you've built, because obviously those are top level. What else do you see in the marketplace? What other companies are doing this well?
In AI,
Sure, AI or yeah, AI or anything else.
I don't know. It's so hard. Like at the cost of sounding like bullish or cocky, even like I wish some people can copy us. Like can come to us seriously, because like first of all, if they copy, they come second, and we're first. So it really sets the stage for like who's leading and who's following. In an ecosystem like this, where if you're not first, you're last. That's that's okay. Like we still win in a way. Like they follow us, and then that's okay. But the reality is, developers win, and that's what matters the most. You can copy a product, then get, I don't know, 40 million in a seed round, and build this company, and it's still like two, three co-founders. They get 1 million each. They can go on for 20 years. No customers, no nothing. They will never raise ever again. They'll be millionaires. Nobody cares. And I feel for most of the time, companies and startups have been playing that kind of game. We want to play a different kind of game, where we're not chasing VC money much. We just get the essential, what we need, but then we get heads down, and with those constraints, then we are forced to make the decisions that really matter for us and for our customers, more importantly. And that's why we got this success. Like we have 1/5, sometimes 1/10 of the capital that's available to like peers in our ecosystem. Yet we're growing faster than them, and there's a reason. The reason is because we play well with constraints and we do the right thing. So that's why I'm really, it's really hard to find for me like an example that we are following. What I'm telling you is, what I can tell you is, there are companies like V0, Bolt, Lovable, like all these vibe coding companies that like we use vibe coding as kind of an insult, but it's not. It's that kid age 8 that was trying to build a clock and doesn't have the means. Like I was born in middle of nowhere, Italy. I couldn't really obviously get to Stanford, MIT, and study computer science there because I was there. And my dad had a blue collar job, so even if like he wouldn't even know how to start like getting me a scholarship into the US. I made it on my own, and so I'm basically looking at those companies that are solving a problem for the kid and me. And I'm also doing the same. And that's like no surprise that we are partnering with Lovable. They have this program called Shipped, where in 6 weeks you can bootstrap your own startup. And we're there because if Lovable does the front end, does the website,
Sure.
basics, then we empower all these companies with an agentic backend. So your company really uses artificial intelligence not only to build the skeleton, but also the actual functionality that powers it and the value it delivers. And with that, we're basically giving all these vibe coders, which to me are just like my own, the Daniele 1.0 that was trying to build that clock.
One.
Yeah, to build something much cooler. And so this is like a personal like satisfaction that I get off of solving the same thing, that it's the same pain point that I had as a kid, time and time again.
So I think bringing up Lovable is great, and I also saw that you guys are partnered with them, and that's pretty awesome because they're a really fascinating company. But I think bringing them up is a great example because the burning question from the beginning before all that context, which is great. I'm really glad that we did that. Is that I think a common piece of pushback that I get from people in my community around using Lovable vibe coding or using AI agents to build themselves essentially, or even using them in the first place if you don't understand really how they're making decisions, is you can vibe code something in Lovable and then try to have a back end to it or try to have a front end. Something goes wrong, you have no idea what's happening. So what is your answer to that type of pushback? Also when you're using Toolhouse to build something like that.
Yeah, I heard the same. And I think the argument is there's a fallacy in that argument, because
Okay.
when we build something like that, we're not trying to build a complete solution that stays there and never changes. Why are we trying to do that? We're trying to do that so that we can start putting that idea on the market. It's good enough that it solves a problem worth paying for. That gives you money at very low cost. So when you start having some money, you can start hiring somebody who can fix the problem for you. And that's how a company starts. So you start from kind of
I see.
solopreneur or indie developer project to something that becomes a little bigger because it's solving a problem to the point that people are willing to pay for it, right? So when you get that, then you get something that becomes an entity, a company, then a larger company, and in the future, the enterprise of the future, of 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So it all starts with like very small projects that are not perfect and don't have to be perfect, but solve a need immediately. And that's the new game, solving a need immediately, not in 5 years. This ecosystem is changing more rapidly than ever. Every 3 months, you have a new model, there's a new announcement every other day. Like this, not a trend. It's something that's staying. Why? Because AI itself is commoditizing software development, and it's accelerating the way we build and ship and think about software. And when we have this, now that we have this kind of new pattern, then it's more important than ever that you go to market first and more rapidly than everybody else. It doesn't matter if you had the best possible solution that's completely bug free or the most complete thing. Just do one thing and do it well, and the rest will follow. If you are hitting the right problem right there, right on target, then money will follow. Money will help you get people that will fix the problem for you, and it will help you grow as a company. And those are going to be the companies that are going to stick in the future.
Got it. So related question. So let's take your example. I don't think this is what you did because I think you're much more experienced in this. But let's say like you use one of these tools and you come up with a company like Tool. Well, let's just take Toolhouse for example. So in this space, you guys are very deep in the AI universe and you're empowering people. There are a lot of companies in this space doing really cool things. How are you going about growth? Because it seems like when you're hitting a problem, like you're saying exactly on the head, there's not a lot of outbound outreach you need to do. There's a lot of inbound traffic. So I'm curious how you guys are approaching growth at
Yeah,
this time.
yeah, our growth is completely like 98% inbound. So we start by telling it like this, like I did today. This was inbound, and this is basically the kind of motion we have. We also need to understand why growth is so important right now, and there are kind of two types of audience for growth. One, and I think it's the key audience, are investors. So when we talk about growth, we probably talk about growth because we want investors to chime in or listen or get them to messages because we're raising money. Be wary when that happens, and see every time you see like somebody posting a chart, somebody posting about their revenue, ask yourself, if it's on LinkedIn, do they say that they come from a particular accelerator? Do they say that they are CEO or something? Ask yourself the question, then you'll understand exactly what's happening, because that's basically a ton of signaling. It's and we see that a ton of time. Like startups are like fireworks. You see the fireworks going up in the sky, then pop, a seed round gets announced, and then nothing. You know, so that's basically the game of growth explained. And then the other part is there are companies that do it just to reassure their customers, hey, we're growing, but they don't tell you we're growing in revenue. They're telling you like there's a huge community, there's apps being created, here's the use case. And it doesn't, the growth factor, the growth rate doesn't matter much. What matters is there's a sense of community. And we'd rather subscribe to this, to the latter, because growth for growth's sake, you can hack it in any possible way. You can talk about your ARR. ARR means that you have contracts that have been signed for 12 months, or revenue from a credit card that's been signed for 12 months. And then if people cancel it, it still counts as ARR for that year. So I can give you like millions of ARR by hacking the subscription. Maybe I can offer some discount and then post something on X and say, hey, I got 10 million revenue, and then it's not true. And some companies have done that in the recent past. I don't want to do that. I just want to make sure that we act, even if we're like more silent than others, we act on an entirely net community where we are solving the problem. Our growth is not getting things at scale with ads or with a huge network of investors that can prop our name up, but it's more like going to a hackathon, going table by table, figuring out what the people are doing and asking them, hey, this prompt is not correct. Let me fix it for you. Here you go. And if you do that, do things that don't scale. It's something I didn't invent. It's something that's pretty common in startups. When you need to do this kind of things that don't scale. You need to have this kind of empathy with people. And nobody wants to play the game, so they leave us with this territory completely open for us, with this blue ocean to go. And guess what? We have all the time and energy and passion, more importantly, to do this, and we're doing it. And that's why we have the community we have.
So if your definition of growth or success is in the quality of your community, which I think is beautiful and wholesome, and I wish more people would think like that. How do you guys internally have conversations around like, hey, this is, we're heading in the right direction? Like, do you have metrics like engagement, community size, how many people this week did we speak to and solve a problem for? Like, how do you measure something like that?
Yeah, you know what the hardest thing is in our line of work? It's making people perform the same action twice. So that's basically our metric. The users come back for a second agent, for a third agent. What's the time? So all these kind of things, yeah, we do measure.
Got it.
And that's why we start like understand when we actually hit something. At the end of the month, we see that people ask for more. All the sandbox tiers are already depleted, so people switch to a paid plan. So that's basically what we see, and that's kind of the kind of loop that we want to see there. Mostly, like, you also have this mentality, and that's something you learn when you do developer experience for so long. There's this concept of developer zero. Google originally started with that, popularized the concept of developer zero. What does it mean? It means that you're an engineer. Like, I'm a developer. I understand what it means if I'm hitting something. And how do I know this? Because parts of Toolhouse now, we started to build parts of Toolhouse, like I mentioned before, on Toolhouse itself. Like, our help system is now built on Toolhouse for a documentation website that has an agent that you can chat to. Like, our chat with your docs, our chat with your docs mechanism is built on top of Toolhouse. So if I struggle to build that in more than 4 hours, then I know that we're not hitting anything,
Wow.
because people can't build the kind of experiences. If I can do it under maybe say half a day, then I'm hitting something. And the moment I started to build that in within like 4 hours, I knew we were hitting something, you know. And that is basically the ultimate compass for whether or not we're actually solving the problem of accelerating AI development for everybody. Am I spending a day working around the shitty developer experience that this platform is giving me? Or is this platform actually giving me such a simple and straightforward developer experience that I don't even have to go to the docs? I can just like have fun and prod around,
Yeah.
you know? So
Yeah. Yeah.
we're obviously striving to achieve the seconds, and that's what's happening. Like, developers recognize that. We have people in our community that are like in love with developer experience. So much so that two we had to hire, and now they are community and developer relations people, because they
Nice.
build such like amazing stuff, things that make me rave myself. Human from our community, he's always on Discord. I posted what he did a few days ago. He built a game where every NPC is an agent, with Toolhouse. I was
Wow.
like,
That
this
sounds
is, this is
nuts.
insanity. Like, I didn't know it was the freaking thing. It's amazing.
Wow. Well, yeah. So, well, that you answered another one of my questions. I was curious how you guys go about managing that because you guys have so much to do. So it's cool to hear that you guys have community members do that themselves. There's two final questions I love asking people, and I cannot wait to hear what you have to say. And the first one is what there's a lot of good momentum. There's a lot of awesome things happening at Toolhouse, which is cool. What is the biggest hurdle that you guys are facing at the moment, and how is it present an opportunity for you?
Well, the biggest hurdle is how can we keep doing what we do, but increasing its output by a factor of 50. Yeah, how do we scale even more efficiently? And I mean, that's a constraint, but it's also an opportunity, because again, in the constraint, there's the opportunity. You can see the
Yeah,
problem or you can see the opportunity.
absolutely.
And that makes me think about, like, historically how this has been solved. For example, when we flew the first man on the moon, how did we do it? We didn't have the computing power we had before, or we had now. We didn't have digital computers either. I think the first digital computers were actually born around that era. So with the technology we had a ton of constraints, and that gave us very creative outputs to figure out best ways to do that kind of stuff. Recently, when DeepSeek came about, DeepSeek is a thinking model that costs probably like 100th, I don't know, like super cheap compared to what the US is building. And it's done because China cannot import the latest GPUs from NVIDIA. And so China had to be smart and think how to create a thinking model with the hardware they had at their disposal. So with constraints, it always comes creativity. And so the way we do it, that's how we started to build parts of Toolhouse with Toolhouse. We set forth that internal goal is that we need to build a parts of Toolhouse in Toolhouse, starting with certain internal processes. And that allows us to scale better, because we don't have to, for example, hire somebody who does operations. Our operations can be managed through Toolhouse. Like, if we need to, you can just spin up an agent that stays there and can like sort out your calendar, or organize your data room, or create internal documentation for the Eng team. And that's basically how we start scaling things up. And then obviously the more we grow in revenue, the more we'll have the ability to figure out how to create more complex products or get more people. But mostly it's all about figuring out the right marketing motion for us when it comes to growing. And that, I would say, thankfully, still a ton of people involved. Like, people want to see people, they want to see agents, they want
Yeah,
to talk
yeah,
to
yeah.
agents, the human empathy connection. So all the developer relations and community people are still safe with their jobs.
Well, you have all of this building to do, and I'm curious what inspires you to keep doing it.
What inspires me? It's a good question, because there's no single thing that inspires me. I want to say, since the time I struggled with my first computer program, I think that's been my constant inspiration, because it made me see a world where you can actually build without knowing the underlying implementation of something.
Hmm.
You know, it's like more democratized world where you can just build something, and that makes things more accessible. And I think that probably is my ultimate focus. Like, I want to make sure that we live in a world where everybody has the same opportunity. So it's I mean, that sounds more like, pageant contest kind of
Yeah.
answer, if you will, but it's true. Like, if you need to keep knowledge or a technology because of cost, because you need to study it, then it's not okay. And I saw that when I was at Facebook. Like, at Facebook, I didn't have a great life, to be honest, because everybody came either from Stanford or from Microsoft or both, and so they create their own clique. They knew one another because of their alma mater, or they were alumni or of a specific company. And this guy that came from middle of nowhere, Italy, and all of a sudden was there. So thankfully, like, my attitude is not to complain about it. I actually want to do something about it. I want to prove my value constantly. And this is basically the sum of everything. I actually don't consider myself, like, part of my identity is not that I'm a ex Meta or an ex Twitter. I'm myself, like, the kid, 80-year-old that tried to build this clock and
Yeah.
eventually succeeded. It's still there, and I love that. So I I've considered myself the outsider, and there's a world now of outsiders that's knocking this door trying to be let in. Those are the bystanders of the situation. Those are
Hmm.
the old incumbents, like people who started their businesses 15, 20 years ago. They became system integrators with, I don't know, IBM, and now all of a sudden this tsunami AI is washing ashore their business, upending what they knew up until, like, this very moment. They start losing deals because they didn't have the time or the knowledge or the access to the talent to build AI solutions. Like, if you think that in Germany the average salary for an engineer is 53,000 euro, OpenAI came, opened up their office in February there, and they started offering 9 times that to engineers and researchers. Imagine, like, having from like 53,000 to what's that, 490, I think, nine
Yeah, yeah,
times
yeah.
that. My math is correct. Like, where do you go? Like, if I'm a small shop that offers you this new job and there's OpenAI, where the heck do you go?
Yeah.
So there's no access to talent no more, and that is going to happen a ton of businesses. And I want to change that, because those businesses are now the outsiders, the one that can't get access because it's too costly for them, and they play on a different league. So I want to bring everybody on the same league. So it's very dangerous, because when the outsiders, like, rise, they become loud and they want to build change, and that change is going to happen eventually, because there's always strength in numbers, and these people are going to be the numbers there. So that's exactly what we're doing right now. That's why the community really likes to be part of Toolhouse. That's why I consider Toolhouse not just a product, but almost like a political platform, a movement. Yeah, this movement is it's so a matter of time, it's going to break this barrier and make
Yeah.
it AI available to everybody.
Well, that's beautiful. I'm fired up. I'm excited. I'm inspired by what you're inspired by. That sounds awesome. Daniele, thank you so much. This is such a cool conversation. I'm excited to keep in touch and have an update call. And now, if someone else that was listening is also looking to stay in touch or follow your journey, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
What's is there like a best way to stay in touch or follow up with your guys' company?
Toolhouse.ai. That's the thing. You go on Toolhouse. When you go on the landing page, there's the Discord community. Join us. You can sign up. It's free. And then if you want to pay, it's only 1 cent per agent run. So with the price of a latte in San Francisco, was that $7? You get what?
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Toolhouse.ai. Got it. Well, thank you so
Yes.
much. Appreciate it, man. Have a good day. All right.
Thanks for having me.